Hello and welcome to a new series I'm calling Kitchen Economics. I'm Dan Vandenheed. I'm running for state representative in the 78th District in Michigan. I am just recently retired as a high school teacher, including probably 20 of my 25 years or so teaching economics, both at the high school level and some introductory college level classes. I always liked economics and tried to always make it a little more real to my students, and so this series I'm going to be focusing on kind of some of these basic economic issues and try to make them accessible, which is why I'm calling it kitchen economics, because kind of your home-brewed economics, if you will, and also how that can apply to my campaign and my policy positions on things like finances, taxes, and budgets, and so forth. This first one I'm actually redoing. Any good teacher will admit when they've made a mistake, and I had a math teacher call me out on my first one. I made a math mistake in my presentation, and it actually makes my point even better with my math. I'll point that out when we get to it. So let's get right to it. This first episode, I'm going to start out with some basic kind of number thing. So key points in this first episode, we're going to be looking at millions versus billions. We're going to relate that to government couch change, as in government spending, and also wealth inequality, which I feel is a big issue in this country that is going to have to be dealt with. All right, so get right to the math of it here. One of the big things to talk about is millions versus billions, and when we're talking about money, and the $1 million, that's kind of been the standard bearer for a long time. People talk about, who wants to be a millionaire and so forth. So people are familiar with that concept. That's kind of a goal a lot of people shoot for, even though very, very few Americans ever reach that milestone. And then you hear about billionaires, and I think people have a hard time wrapping their head around that kind of money. So million, 6 zeros, a billion, 9 zeros. But what do those 3 extra zeros mean? Well, one way to put it in perspective, I think, which I find maybe more telling for people, is if you thought of $1 million as a dime. All right, so this dime represents $1 million. And to the government spending thing, think about government spending. Millions to them are probably about like dimes to us, and that seems crazy, but it's, when you're talking about trillion-dollar budgets, multiple trillion-dollar budgets, millions get down to the dimes. So then if that's a million, how much is a billion? Well, it's 1,000 of those, right? 1,000 million is a billion. And in fact, I like how they do it when I listen to the BBC. They don't use the term billions. They use $1,300 million, and that's 1.3 billion, but it gives you a little more perspective. So if you took 1,000 of these, what you would have is this, a Benjamin. So that's the difference between a million and a billion, right? When we're talking millions, we're talking dimes. When we're talking billions, we're talking the $100 bills. So a huge difference between being a millionaire, just a plain old millionaire, and a billionaire. And when we talk about government spending, then that can, I think, put it in perspective a little bit. So on the CARES Act that we just recently passed on the COVID-19, that was $2.3 trillion. Well, okay, so million, billion, trillion, I'd have to add 3 more zeros. I'd have 12 zeros. So it'd be $2.3 trillion. So that would be 2,300 of those $100 bills, as opposed to a dime. And in that CARES Act, one of the things that I heard people complaining about was that, they said, oh, they put in $25 million for the Kennedy Center for the Arts or something like that. And I said, okay, maybe, we do have to, I think certainly public servants have to look after all the money, but you have to realize $25 million in a $2.3 trillion bill. When you're talking about spending 2,300 of these, 25 of these is, well, it's government couch change, as we say. So we're keeping the budget numbers in perspective. I think politicians understand that, and they like to highlight things like, oh, they were wasting millions of dollars. Again, shouldn't waste any money, but to keep things in perspective, relate it to how we think about money. I think we think about dimes and $100 bills very differently. So we need to think about that very differently, millions and billions, when we're talking about government budgets. That's federal level I'm talking. All right, next, wealth inequality. I'm going to pick on Jeff Bezos a little bit today. Jeff Bezos, guy who started Amazon, currently listed as the richest person in the world. About $140 billion is his net worth. And that just, we have to put that in some kind of perspective too. What does that mean? And I'll pick on him because recently they've been in the news. On May Day, last Sunday, there was a strike called by Amazon workers for the lack of protective PPE gear. And just today in the news, I saw that one of the vice presidents of Amazon quit because he felt like the refusal to provide some of these things and provide for the safety of the workers was, he just couldn't support that kind of thing. And so they're just asking for, some protection in the workplace, but let's break it down money-wise. What if you were working for Jeff Bezos, kind of how that would play out. All right, so Jeff Bezos is worth, currently they figure $140 billion. Now that's net worth, that's total value of, mostly a lot of Amazon stock and so forth. All right, Amazon has worldwide 750,000 workers approximately, 400,000 in the United States, but worldwide about 750,000 workers for Amazon. So what if he was, going to be extremely generous and just say, you know what, I think I'm going to turn this company over to the workers. I'm going to, divide my wealth up among them. Well, just to put a perspective how much $140 billion is, if he divided up his wealth among the 750,000 workers at Amazon, that would be $186,000 each. And so in another episode, I'll talk about marginal utility, that, how basically the idea of like this to Jeff Bezos isn't even, it's not even a dime. It's pocket change, it's a penny. But what that means to the average person. Now, obviously that's not realistic. No CEO is going to give up all his wealth, but what if he took half of it? He took $70 billion, and he would still have $70 billion, still make him one of the richest people in the world, and divided the rest up. He could give over 90, almost $100,000 to each of the 750,000 Amazon workers worldwide, and imagine the change that makes in their life. And again, I'm not suggesting that he should do that or anything, but just to give a little bit of perspective of when people talk about wealth inequality in the United States, how big numbers we're talking about. All right, so key points. We've got millions versus billions, big difference between them. That millions is government couch change for when you're looking at $1 trillion budgets, and the wealth inequality. All right, we will see you next time.